forest was alive with strange sounds. Every step the human soldier took echoed between the tall, glowing trees. His boots sank into the wet ground, and the mist hung heavy in the air. The place felt endless, filled with shadows that moved. Even when the wind was silent, he had been separated from his squad hours ago. Blaster fire and the roar of alien beasts had broken the line. Now he was alone, his arm wounded, and his rifle almost out of charge. Every breath he took reminded him that survival here was almost impossible. The forest was not like Earth. Giant mushrooms glowed with soft blue light, tall enough to tower like buildings. Orange plants curled around broken skulls, lying on the forest floor. The bones were not only of animals, they were too big, too strange. Some of them looked like human skulls, but stretched and reshaped. The soldier shivered as he realized he was walking through a graveyard. Then, the ground trembled. At first it was soft, like distant thunder, but each step grew louder, closer. Shaking the roots under his feet, the soldier froze, gripping his weapon tightly. His heart raced as the mist parted. From the fog, a massive figure appeared. She was towering, at least 9 feet tall, her skin glowing blue under the mushroom light. Her hair was long and black, falling down her back like a river of midnight. 2 sharp ears rose from her head, twitching as they caught every sound. Her eyes glowed violet, piercing through the shadows. She wore black armor strapped with strange golden symbols. Each piece of metal curved to her powerful body, making her look like both a goddess and a warrior. The soldier took a step back. His weapon shook in his hands. He had seen alien warriors before, but never one like this. She was not only huge, she was beautiful, terrifyingly beautiful. Her presence was overwhelming. Like the forest itself had taken shape, the giantess stopped in front of him. Her shadow covered him like a mountain blocking the sun. She looked down, her lips curling into a smile. Then she laughed, a deep laugh that echoed across the trees. Her voice was smooth yet powerful, shaking the air around him. So small, she said, her voice filled with amusement. A tiny human lost in my forest. Her words cut into him. He felt anger, but also fear. He tightened his grip on the rifle, pointing it at her chest. But she only tilted her head, her smile widening. Her glowing eyes watched him like a predator watching a mouse. "You think that little weapon can harm me?" she asked, still amused. She took a single step closer, and the ground shook again. The soldier pulled the trigger. A weak bolt of light shot out, striking her armor, but instead of pain, only smoke rose from the impact. She laughed again, louder. "This time, toothpick toys," she said. "That is what your kind brings." The soldier's heart sank. He had nothing left. If she wanted, she could crush him in an instant. He closed his eyes for a moment, waiting for the end. But then, something strange happened. The giantess leaned down, her shadow wrapping around him. Her huge hand reached out, and before he could move, she lifted him off the ground. Her grip was firm yet gentle, as if holding something fragile. The soldier gasped, staring into her glowing violet eyes. Her expression had changed. She was not mocking him anymore. There was curiosity there, and something else, something softer. "You are brave," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Small, weak, but you did not run." The soldier struggled, but her arms were strong. She cradled him against her chest, as if he was a child. The warmth of her skin radiated through the cold air. He wanted to shout, to fight, but he was too weak. The wound in his arm burned, and his vision blurred. She studied him carefully, her violet eyes glowing brighter. "I should end you now," she whispered. "That is what my people would do." But she didn't. Instead, she began walking, carrying him deeper into the forest. Each step shook the ground, but her hold on him was steady. The soldier's thoughts spun. Why was she sparing him? Was she taking him to her tribe? Would they kill him slowly instead of quickly? Or was she planning something else, something far more dangerous? The forest closed around them, glowing plants bending in the mist. The giantess carried him as if he weighed nothing. Her laughter was gone now, replaced by silence. Only the sound of her steps and his shallow breaths filled the air. For the first time, the soldier realized he was not only lost in the forest. He was now in the hands of a giantess who could decide his fate at any moment. And she had already proven one thing. To her, size did not mean weakness, it meant something else. Something he could not yet understand. But deep in her eyes, he saw it. Not just power, not just curiosity. There was a spark. A strange and dangerous spark. One that would change both their lives forever. The forest grew darker as the giantess carried the human deeper into her world. Strange vines moved like living snakes. Glowing flowers opened and closed as if breathing. The air was thick with the smell of wet soil and unknown life. The human's heart pounded with every step she took. He felt trapped, powerless in her arms, yet a small part of him could not stop staring at her face. Her beauty was both terrifying and unreal. Like a dream born inside a nightmare, she stopped near a stream, its water glowing with silver light. She placed him down gently on a flat stone, her eyes never leaving him. The human tried to rise, but his wound burned too much. He clenched his teeth, refusing to show weakness. The giantess tilted her head, watching him, her violet eyes shining. "You humans are fragile," she said, her voice calm yet sharp. "Bones that break, skin that bleeds, bodies that fall with a single strike." She crossed her arms, towering over him like a queen. Her long ears twitched, catching the faintest sounds in the forest. She stood proud, her chest lifted, her armor gleaming under the mushroom light. The human glared at her, his breathing heavy. "We may be small," he said, his voice strained, "but size is not the only measure of strength." Her lips curled into a slow smile. She lowered herself to one knee, bringing her face closer to his. "So the little soldier speaks of strength," she whispered. Her breath was warm, her tone filled with mocking amusement. "You point your tiny weapon, and it barely scratches my armor. You bleed from a simple wound, and yet you dare to claim power." Her words stung, but he held her gaze, refusing to look away. "You laugh now," he said, "but we survive where others fall. We fight even when all hope is gone. We keep standing when giants would kneel." The giantess stared at him for a moment, her smile fading. Her eyes narrowed as if she was searching for something inside him. Then, with sudden force, she stood tall again, her voice rising like thunder. "Do not compare yourself to my people, human," she said. "We were born in war, raised in storms. Our enemies fall before our blades. Our tribes conquer worlds, while your kind crawls in shadows." Her pride burned in every word. The forest itself seemed to tremble as she spoke. The human sat silent, but his mind raced. He realized something important. She was not only mocking him, she was defending her pride. Her words were not just about him, but about her people, her identity. She turned away, her long hair flowing like a dark river. Her hand touched the water of the glowing stream. For a moment, her fierce eyes softened, but only for a moment. She whispered something in her own language, a sound deep and haunting. The human did not understand the words, but he understood the weight. This warrior carried more than strength. She carried history, tradition, and the burden of expectation. A sudden roar broke the silence. From the trees, a beast leaped out, its body covered in scales, its jaws lined with razor teeth. The human tried to reach for his weapon, but he was too slow. The giantess moved faster than lightning. She spun, her massive hand grabbing the beast by its neck. With one pull, she slammed it to the ground, her boot crushing its chest. The forest shook with the impact. The beast howled once, then fell still. The giantess breathed heavily, her muscles tense, her chest rising and falling. She looked down at the human, her lips curling back into that proud smile. "Do you see, human?" she said, her voice almost singing with victory. "This is power. This is why my people laugh at yours. We do not struggle. We conquer. But the human's eyes did not show fear. Instead, he smirked through his pain. You are strong, no doubt, he said, his voice steady, but you needed your size, your strength, your power of body. While I would have used my mind. Her smile faded again. She did not answer, but her silence was loud. For the first time, she felt the weight of his words. Perhaps she had power of body, but he carried a different kind of fire, a smaller flame, but one that did not die. The night crept in, the glowing mushrooms lighting the forest with cold blue light. She sat down across from him, her massive body like a wall of shadow and armor. She watched him as he tried to fix his bandage, his hands shaking yet determined. She did not offer to help, not yet. Her pride would not allow it, but deep inside, something shifted. This tiny soldier had looked her in the eyes, unbroken, and for the first time, she wondered if her laughter had been a shield, not just against him, but against herself. As the mist thickened, the giantess leaned back, her violet eyes still glowing. She whispered to herself, almost too soft for him to hear, small, fragile, and yet, not weak. The human pretended not to notice, but he heard every word, and in that moment, he knew. Her pride was strong, but cracks had begun to show. The night was restless, the air heavy with sounds that did not belong to Earth. The human sat near the glowing stream, trying to keep his eyes open, but exhaustion pressed down on him like a heavy stone. The giantess rested on a rock nearby, her massive frame like a shadow carved from the forest itself. Her armor glimmered faintly under the soft light of the mushrooms, her violet eyes half closed, yet always alert. Even in silence, she radiated power, as if the forest itself feared to disturb her. The human tried not to think about his squad. He did not know if they were alive or dead. All he knew was that he was here, in the Karo or the captivity of a giantess who could decide his fate at any moment. But the more he watched her, the more he noticed small things. The way her ears twitched when the wind shifted, the way her fingers tapped against her armor as if in thought. She was not only a warrior, she was always listening, always aware. It made him wonder if she trusted this place as little as he did. At dawn, the mist rose again, curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. The giantess stood, her long hair catching the dim light. Without a word, she motioned for him to follow. He hesitated, but something in her gaze told him resistance was pointless, so he walked, limping beside her massive strides. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. Some plants pulsed with a heartbeat-like rhythm. Others released clouds of glowing dust that made the air shimmer. The ground was littered with strange bones, long and twisted, belonging to creatures he could not name. Everywhere he looked, he felt like he was walking through the pages of a nightmare. Suddenly, a sound echoed, a low hiss, sharp and dangerous, from the shadows. Long bodies slithered forward, creatures with 4 arms and jaws filled with serrated teeth. The human froze, his weapon raised, though nearly empty. The giantess stepped in front of him, her hand lifting a massive spear strapped to her back. Her eyes gleamed with fire. "Stay behind me," she ordered, her voice firm like steel. The beasts lunged, their claws slicing through the mist. The giantess moved like a storm, her spear spinning, each strike cutting through thick scales. One beast leaped over her, its jaws opening wide. The human acted fast, rolling to the side and pulling a sharp piece of metal from his belt. With quick thought, he stabbed the creature's soft underbelly. It shrieked, writhing as it fell. The giantess turned her head for just a second, her eyes widening as she saw it. This tiny human had just saved himself, and perhaps her too. The fight raged on, but together they forced the beasts back. The giant's strength and his quick thinking created a rhythm, a balance. When it was over, the ground was littered with bodies, the mist stained with their dark blood. The human collapsed to one knee, his chest heaving. The giantess stood over him, breathing hard but uninjured, for the first time. Her laughter did not come. Instead, she looked at him with something else. In her gaze, something unreadable, "You are reckless," she said at last, her tone sharp. "But not useless." The human smirked weakly, wiping blood from his arm. "And you're not invincible," he replied, nodding at the claw mark on her shoulder plate. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but her pride held it back as they moved. Again, the forest seemed to close in tighter. They found a clearing where ancient stone ruins stood, half swallowed by vines and moss. Strange carvings glowed faintly on the walls, symbols the human could not understand. But the giantess paused, her eyes narrowing. "These marks," she whispered. "They speak of the old tribes." She walked closer, her fingers brushing the carvings, as if they carried a memory. Her proud stance softened for a moment. The human realized then this jungle was not only dangerous, it was sacred, a place tied to her people's past. "You bring me here on purpose?" the human asked quietly. Her gaze snapped to him, fierce again. "No," she said firmly. "The forest chooses its path, not me." Her answer left him unsettled. He wanted to believe she was guiding them, but there was something in her tone, something even she did not fully control. As they set camp near the ruins, the human studied her carefully. She sat tall, silent, her violet eyes scanning the jungle as if it might rise against them. But beneath her pride, beneath her armor, and her laughter, he saw glimpses of something else, a burden, a history, and maybe even doubt. That night, as the mist curled once again, the giantess finally spoke. Her voice low and almost soft. "You humans think you are clever," she said. "Maybe you are, but cleverness will not save you here. Not always, not in this place." The human looked into her glowing eyes, steady, unafraid. "Maybe not," he said, "but sometimes it is the only thing we have." Her eyes lingered on him for a long moment, then she turned away, her pride shielding her once again. But deep inside, she knew his words carried weight, because, in this cursed jungle, even giants did not always walk away alive. The jungle at night was never silent. Strange howls echoed through the mist, and glowing insects buzzed like sparks in the air. The human sat by a dying fire, his body weak, but his mind restless. The giant leaned against a massive tree, her spear across her knees, her eyes glowing faintly violet in the dark, even when she seemed at rest. She was like a blade, sharp and unyielding. The human's wound had worsened. The cloth tied around his arm now soaked with blood. Every time he moved, pain surged through him. Yet he refused to collapse. He knew that showing weakness before her would only confirm her belief that humans were fragile and unworthy. So he sat upright, teeth clenched, pretending the pain was nothing. The giantess watched him quietly, her ears twitching at the slightest sound. For hours she said nothing, her pride holding her silence like armor. But inside, a question grew. Why did this tiny human not beg for mercy? Why did he keep pushing forward when he could barely stand? At midnight, the forest shifted, the mist grew thicker, the sounds sharper, and the ground trembled under many footsteps. The giantess rose instantly, her spear ready. The human forced himself up, gripping the broken remains of his weapon. From the shadows, a pack of creatures emerged, taller than men, with claws long as knives. Their eyes glowed red, their bodies covered in armored scales. The pack circled them, hissing, growling, their jaws dripping venom. The giantess stood tall, her voice a roar. "Stay behind me, human," she commanded. Her pride told her he was too small, too weak to fight beasts like these. But the human shook his head, stepping forward beside her. "I will not hide," he said, his voice steady despite his pain. The beasts lunged. The giantess moved like thunder, her spear slashing through the air, cutting down two in a single swing. But more came, surrounding them, snapping their jaws. One leaped at the human, and he rolled aside, slamming a jagged rock into its throat. The beast howled, thrashing before collapsing. Blood stained his hands, but his eyes burned with fire. The giantess struck again and again. but even her great strength could not keep them all at bay. One beast slipped past her guard, charging at the human, without thinking. The human raised his arms, shouting to draw its attention. It slammed into him, knocking him to the ground, its claws slicing across his chest. He cried out, but even then, he grabbed a shard of bone from the ground and stabbed it upward. The beast roared, collapsing beside him. The giantess turned, her eyes wide. She crushed the last of the creatures with a kick that split its ribs. Then she rushed to the human's side. He was bleeding badly, gasping for air, but still alive. Her massive hand pressed against his chest, trying to stop the blood. "You fool," she hissed, her voice shaking with anger. "You should have stayed behind me. You would be dead if I had been one breath slower." But the human's lips curled into a faint smile. "I'm not dead," he whispered, "because I refused to run." Her anger froze. She stared into his eyes, seeing no fear, no weakness, only defiance. For the first time, her laughter did not rise. Instead, something heavy pressed in her chest. This human, so small, so fragile, had chosen to face death head-on, not for glory, not for pride, but because he refused to bow. She lifted him carefully, cradling him against her chest again. Her arms were strong, but her thoughts were tangled. She had mocked him, laughed at his size, but now she realized he carried a courage her kind often forgot, the courage to fight when the battle could not be won. They retreated to the ruins, the firelight flickering over their faces. The giantess worked quickly, tearing cloth from her armor to bind his wounds. Her large fingers were clumsy, but gentle. The human bit back every groan, refusing to show pain. Her eyes narrowed as she worked, her pride cracking. Why was she trying so hard to keep him alive? When the bandage was tied, she sat back, her chest rising and falling. "You are reckless." "Human," she said softly, her voice no longer mocking, "but you are brave, braver than many I have seen." The human closed his eyes, breathing slowly. "Then maybe," he whispered, "I am not as small as you think." Her gaze lingered on him, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The words struck her deeper than she wanted to admit. She thought of her people, her tribe, their endless pride and strength and conquest. But what she saw tonight was different. Strength was not only in size, not only in the body. It could live in something much smaller, something like the human lying in her arms. As the night grew quiet again, the giantess leaned against the stone wall, her spear beside her. She kept the human close, listening to his shallow breaths. For the first time, she did not laugh at him. Instead, she wondered if perhaps his courage was a weapon her kind could never match. And that thought unsettled her more than any beast in the jungle. The jungle was quiet after the battle. Too quiet. The human lay near the ruins, his chest bandaged, his breathing shallow but steady. The giantess sat beside him, her massive frame still and watchful, her spear resting across her knees. The mist curled through the trees like pale smoke, carrying with it the smell of blood and damp earth. For the first time, there was no laughter between them, only silence, heavy and strange. She glanced down at him, studying his small frame, every cut on his skin, every bruise, every drop of blood. He had earned it through defiance. Her people mocked humans for weakness, yet this one refused to break. She could not deny it. He had impressed her, not with strength of body, but with something else, something deeper. The human stirred, his eyes opening slowly. He looked at her, his lips forming a faint smile. "You're still here," he whispered, voice weak but steady. The giantess tilted her head, her long black hair falling over her shoulder. "Of course," she replied, her voice low. "I saved you. It would be foolish to waste the effort." But inside, she knew it was more than that. Something had changed. A thread had been tied between them, invisible but strong. The human tried to sit up, but pain pulled him back down. She reached out without thinking, her massive hand pressing against his shoulder. "Do not move yet," she said firmly. "You will tear your wounds open." He looked up at her, his brown eyes steady despite his weakness. Funny, he said softly. You mocked me for being fragile, and now you treat me like something you want to protect. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but she forced it away. You are still fragile, she said, but perhaps not useless. The human chuckled weakly, and the sound was strange in the deadly forest. For a moment, the tension lifted, replaced by something lighter. He leaned his head back against the stone, his voice soft but sure. You're not what I thought you were either, he said. Her violet eyes narrowed slightly, curious. And what did you think I was? She asked. A monster, he answered. A giant who would crush me without thought. She looked away, the words cutting deeper than she expected. They stayed in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the glowing plants around them. Then she spoke again, her tone softer, almost reluctant. My people, she began, they believe strength is all that matters. They see small ones like you as weak as prey. Her eyes darkened, glowing faintly in the mist. To them, sparing you would be dishonor. They would laugh at me, call me broken, unfit to lead. The human's breath was shallow, but his words came clear. And yet, here you are, saving me. Her jaw tightened, her pride refusing to admit the truth. I do what I wish, she said sharply, not what others demand. But her own words echoed in her mind. Was it true, or was she lying to herself? She had carried him, healed him, fought beside him, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The human closed his eyes, exhausted. You could have left me, he whispered. You could have let the jungle finish me. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. But I didn't, she said simply, her voice quiet. The fire crackled weakly beside them, and for a long time neither spoke. The bond between them grew, not through words, but through the silence, through the battles they had survived, through the choices made when death was near. She had begun to respect him, and he had begun to trust her. As dawn rose, the forest came alive again. Bird-like creatures with crystal wings flew between the glowing trees. The human pushed himself upright, still weak, but determined. The giantess frowned, ready to stop him. But this time she didn't. She watched him take a slow step forward, limping but refusing to fall. You see, he said, his voice tired, but proud. We humans don't stop, even when it hurts. Her chest tightened at his words. She felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her, something dangerous. It was not pity, not amusement, not mockery. It was respect, raw and undeniable. And beneath it, a warmth she could not explain. She stood, towering above him, yet for the first time she did not feel larger. In his determination, he seemed taller than he was. She crossed her arms, masking her thoughts behind pride. Do not think this bond means you are safe, she warned, her tone sharp. My people would still tear you apart if they saw you at my side. The human looked up at her, his eyes steady. Then let them try, he said simply, her breath caught, her pride clashing with the strange fire inside her. She turned away, her hair falling across her face. Foolish human, she whispered, though her voice lacked the mockery it once carried. That night, as they sat by the ruins again, the human finally fell into deep sleep. The giantess remained awake, her spear in hand, her gaze fixed on the shadows, but her thoughts were not on the dangers of the jungle. They were on the man lying beside her, small but unbroken, and for the first time, she admitted to herself what she had been denying. The bond between them was real, and it was growing stronger with every step they took together. The journey through the jungle had changed them both. The human, though still wounded, walked with stubborn steps, never asking for rest. The giantess, though still proud, no longer mocked him the way she once did. Something unspoken had formed between them, fragile but strong. But bonds are always tested, and the forest had not yet revealed its cruelest truth. They came to a clearing where the mist parted and the trees bent away. In the center stood tall stone pillars carved with ancient runes. glowing faintly like embers. The human paused, uneasy. The giantess stiffened, her violet eyes narrowing. She knew this place. It was not just old ground, it was sacred ground, watched by more than the jungle. Before the human could speak, shadows moved. Figures stepped out from the mist, towering like her, armored in black and gold. Their eyes sharp and merciless. Her tribe, dozens of them, spears and blades, glinting in the dim light. The human's chest tightened, his hand reaching for his weak weapon, but the giantess raised her arm, stopping him. "Do not move," she whispered, her voice low. One of the warriors stepped forward, larger even than her, his armor heavy with markings of command. His eyes scanned the human with disgust. "A worm," he growled, his voice echoing like thunder. "And you carry it instead of crushing it." The giantess straightened, her pride rising to meet his glare. "He is mine," she said firmly, her voice carrying strength. A ripple of laughter broke through the tribe, cold and cruel. The commander stepped closer, his shadow swallowing. "The human whole, you dishonor us, sister," he spat. "You protect prey. You defend weakness. Do you forget what we are?" The giantess's jaw tightened, her grip on her spear, fierce. Her pride screamed at her to stand tall, but the bond inside her heart whispered another truth. She looked at the human, small yet steady, his eyes meeting hers without fear. Her chest ached, torn between two worlds. The commander raised his spear, pointing at the human. "Prove yourself," he demanded. "Crush him now, with your own hands. Show us you are still one of us." The human stood silent, his breath slow, his body weak but unshaken. He knew this was the end. If she chose her people, he would die here. But instead of fear, he lifted his chin. "I will not beg," he said softly, his voice carrying across the clearing. "If my death proves your strength, then do it." The giantess froze, her heart pounding. Her people watched, waiting, their laughter like knives. The commander sneered, "See, even the worm accepts its fate." But she heard something else in his voice. Cowardice. He feared the courage in the human's words. Courage no blade could cut. She lowered her spear slowly, her violet eyes burning. "No," she said firmly, her voice like stone. Gasps rippled through the tribe, their laughter dying. The commander's face twisted in rage. "What did you say?" She stepped forward, her shadow falling across the human protectively. "I will not harm him," she declared. "This one is brave, braver than many who stand here with blades. His courage shames you all." The clearing erupted in shouts, warriors growling, their voices clashing like thunder. The commander roared, lifting his spear. "Then you stand against us, against your blood, against your tribe." The giantess lifted her weapon, her voice a roar. "If blood must be spilled, let it be yours." The tribe surged forward, a storm of steel and fury. The giantess moved like fire, her spear spinning, striking with the strength of a storm. The human darted behind her, using broken weapons and clever traps. He kicked stones to trip warriors, grabbed fallen blades, and struck at weak points. Small, fast, sharp, his mind became his greatest weapon. The commander clashed with her directly, their spears striking, the ground shaking with each blow. "You are no warrior," he bellowed. "You are broken." But she pushed him back, her teeth bared. "I am more than a warrior," she shouted. "I choose my own path." The battle raged until the clearing was littered with fallen bodies. At last, the commander fell, her spear piercing his chest, his roar dying in silence. The other warriors froze, watching as their leader's blood stained the stones. The giantess stood tall, her chest heaving, her violet eyes glowing like fire. She raised her weapon high, her voice carrying across the clearing. "This human lives," she declared. "He stands with me, and any who challenge that will fall." The tribe murmured, some lowering their weapons, others backing away. The bond between her and the humans shone brighter than their pride. In that moment, the forest itself seemed to bow. its mist curling around them like a cloak. The human looked up at her, battered but alive. "You chose," he whispered. Her gaze softened, just for him. "Yes," she said, "I chose." And though her pride still burned, something greater now guided her steps, not the laws of her tribe, not the weight of her people's laughter, but the bond she had forged with a man no bigger than her hand. A bond that had become her strength. The clearing was heavy with silence after the battle. The bodies of warriors lay across the sacred stones, their weapons broken, their pride shattered. The giantess stood tall, her chest rising and falling, her armor scarred, her spear still dripping with blood. Beside her, the human leaned on a shattered blade, his body trembling, but his eyes burning with defiance. Together they had faced the storm, and together they still stood. The tribe watched in stunned disbelief. Some lowered their weapons, unwilling to challenge her strength. Others glared with fury, their pride too wounded to accept what they had seen. But none dared step forward, not after watching her strike down their leader. The human looked around, knowing they were still surrounded. Even in victory, death could still claim them. If the tribe chose to rise again, the giantess raised her spear high, her voice booming across the clearing. "You have seen me fight," she declared, her violet eyes blazing. "You have seen me choose. This human is under my protection, and if you wish to take him, you must first take me." The warriors muttered among themselves, some growling, others falling back. The bond she had claimed was no small thing to her people. It was a challenge against everything they believed. Yet none dared to meet her defiance, not when she had spilled the blood of their strongest. Slowly, one by one, the tribe retreated into the mist. Their shadows vanished between the glowing trees, leaving only silence behind. The human let out a slow breath, his shoulders heavy. "You just turned your people against you," he said quietly. The giantess lowered her weapon, looking down at him. "They were never mine." "Not truly," she replied, her voice softer than he expected. The human staggered, his wounds screaming, his legs weak. Before he could fall, the giantess bent and caught him, lifting him once again into her massive arms. This time there was no mockery, no laughter, no amusement. Her hold was steady, protective, filled with something new, something she had never thought she would give to one so small. He looked up at her, his face pale, but his eyes alive. "You laughed at me once," he whispered, his voice faint. She met his gaze, her lips curving slightly. "I did," she admitted. "I thought you were nothing but a fragile toy." Her violet eyes softened, glowing brighter in the mist. "But you showed me more than strength. You showed me courage. And that is something even giants can forget." She carried him through the ruins, the jungle opening before them. The fireflies swirled in the mist, glowing like stars caught in the air. The ground was littered with ancient bones. But for the first time, the human did not feel small among them. He felt tall, not in body, but in spirit, because a giantess had chosen to carry him, not as prey, but as something far greater. The night stretched on, the forest alive with whispers and shadows, but neither of them spoke for a long time. Their silence was not cold, now it was filled with meaning. Every step she took, every breath he drew, bound them tighter together. The bond they shared was no longer fragile, it was unbreakable, forged in fire and blood. At last, they reached a ridge where the trees thinned, the stars above shone brighter than the glowing forest below. The giantess set him gently on a rock, kneeling beside him. Her massive hand brushed his shoulder, her touch careful, almost tender. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly, "standing against your people?" She looked out across the horizon, her long hair flowing like dark silk in the wind. "For them, I was strong," she said slowly, "but with you, I became more than strong. I became free." The human's chest tightened, his throat dry. He wanted to speak, to thank her, but the words caught in his mouth. She leaned closer, her violet eyes glowing in the starlight. "You are small, human," she whispered, "but in your courage, You are greater than any giant I have known." She lifted him once more into her arms, holding him high. This time, her laughter came, but it was not cruel. It was warm, full, alive, echoing across the ridge like a song. The human smiled faintly, despite his pain, and in that moment, he knew he was not her captive, not her prey. He was her choice, her bond, her equal. The jungle stretched below them, endless and dangerous. Their journey was far from over. More trials would come, more battles, more choices, but together, they would face them, not as giant and human, not as captor and captive, but as something stronger, as two souls, bound by fire, laughter, and courage. And as the starlight bathed them in silver, the giantess held him close. Her pride no longer chained to the past, her laughter faded into a soft smile, and for the first time, both of them believed that even in a world where size ruled, the smallest flame could still burn brighter than the mightiest mountain.